All right, hey everybody, and welcome to the Governance Working Group call number 26. Today's October 22nd, 2020, and it's just after noon Eastern time. And I'm joined today by a few folks. Good to see everybody. It's been a while. And just a reminder, we have shifted to this semi-monthly bi-weekly schedule. So these were previously weekly calls, and we now do them every 2 weeks. And in a previous call, we talked about that being a more productive way to do our work individually and asynchronously. So this working group call the format won't have changed much from what we've normally done, but I know that Jason and Juliet have done a lot of work to streamline the way that we run these meetings as well, so that we can get more done asynchronously and independently, and then use these calls as a place to discuss and have stand-ups and go over any new issues that we might want to tackle. Does that sound good to everybody? I can't actually see the chat right now, so you guys can verbally confirm. That's also helpful.
Sounds great.
Works for me.
Right, so one of the first things that, so Juliet, Jason, and I got on a call yesterday just to go over some unresolved operational things with these meetings. And one of the ideas that Juliet had that was really good was to just bank some time at the very beginning to go over recent progress, because we know it's kind of daunting to have everybody watch every single meeting recording or to even go over the notes. Everyone's busy, so it helps just to save a couple of minutes to do those progress updates. And we will have stand-ups as well, but from my perspective, we've spent the last few calls having pretty lengthy discussions about the grant proposal and deciding on whether or not to include the Gaia Hub Inboxes proposal, which seemed like it was going to take up a lot of PBC team time, which is not realistic given the upcoming mainnet launch. So that is one thing that sort of blocked the submission of that grant application that would have otherwise been done toward the middle or end of September. I think that has now been resolved though, and it's something that we will discuss on this call and get ready for submission on this call as well. Are there any other progress points that I'm missing? I know Ryan and Jude have been on a couple of these calls as well, and you've given some updates on the grants program, but there might be some lingering questions about the foundation that I'm missing if anyone wants to chime in there.
Yeah, I'm happy to help answer if anyone has questions around. I know we were just talking about the grant program so far and different funding and different things, but looking forward to seeing the governance committee commit to the grant and reviewing it. It takes a long time to review these things, but yeah, looking forward to having a chance to read it over when it comes in.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Juliet, when you had come up with this idea, were there any other work streams that we hadn't covered or that you wanted to hear updates on?
No, that was the only product that I wanted to hear about from the, our governance team here. So
great.
That's it. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we'll move on to stand-ups. Who would like to go first, since I've already been speaking? I might just go down the list here, if that's all right. So I know Alex is just here lingering. Alex is a newer participant, everyone, so make him feel welcome. The first person on my list after Alex is Harold. Harold, would you like to give a stand-up on anything that you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. Good to see or hear everybody. So yes, I've been working closely with the Indigenous Council that a few of you have got a chance to meet, and still just finishing out, sussing out some of the white paper draft and adding some things that we've decided to add with this last kernel, and been getting together people that we've met in the kernel, and trying to get together some of the folks from the council and hopefully this group as well, in terms of understanding exactly what we can do with this Indigenous Council and what they have to offer governance-wise, particular to this council, or particular to this working group. But also, I'd like to start some discussion with the folks that are here today around Fab Academy and the folks like Tomas Diaz that we hope to bring into discussions here, and to just get people familiarized with exactly, what I feel Fab Academy has to offer to the ecosystem, what we feel the ecosystem has to offer Fab Academy. Things that we've touched on before, and those proposals that I know have been in the discussions for a while now. But I would really like to get as many, voices on, or questions on exactly what Fab Academy is, and what this working group will have to discuss with Tomas once we bring him into discussions. I'd love to have him in this working group at some point in a meeting, or at least in the GitHub discussions. But I also want to be sure that we've had as many voices, more so than voices. I know Jason and Jenny and Juliet and some other folks may be more familiar with other folks in the working group that may be newer. And so, yes, if there's any questions, I think it's it's item 56 or something like this in the discussions tabs in the GitHub. There's proposals there that are specific to the Indigenous Council that we've been working with for the last, I think, 2 years now, coming up on 2 years. And also one specific for Fab Academy. There is some overlap, but they are separate proposals in some ways. So if I'd like to open up at any point later in today's meeting, discussions around this to get as many voices as possible as we're all together as of now. But yes, that's a stand up for myself for now.
Thanks, Harold. Yeah, we can definitely cover that as a discussion point later. And I think Jason can probably go over the format for doing that. For now, we'll move down the list, and Jason's actually next. So Jason, would you like to give your stand up?
Sure, I can do that. And Harold, great to have you back on the call, and definitely anywhere I can help put anything into GitHub or help you with that process. So always happy to help out. Right now, I am working on a draft PR for the standard operating procedures. I am just going through kind of our process, what has changed and what's going on. And I just dropped a link to it in the chat there if anybody wants to take a look. And I'm going to go through this and try and make it as easy as possible for others to do things like creating an agenda or updating resources. Any of those steps that we take, I'd like it to be easily replicated by others. So that's one of my main goals also over the next 2 weeks. And at this time, I don't have any blockers on that one. Just got to kind of walk through. We were able to get through a few of the things on our recent sync. And I think as we build it, we're going to learn more as we go along. The other cool thing I wanted to share too is it was mentioned in the Discord channel, but we have created a new Discord channel that's linked to this repository. And as a result of that, any changes that we make, like if we create a new issue, close out an issue, even with the PRs and things I submit, we'll get a nice running update of those things in Discord now. So it gives you another way to kind of keep track of the pulse of our repository and of our action items and what we're doing. And I definitely encourage everybody to take a look if you haven't seen that yet. It's under the Stacks Governance heading. And the final thing I'm working on, once I get past this draft PR for the standard operating procedures, I really want to take a look at our resources and calls table and start getting that back up to date as well, because we had a nice link to each video and I have some of them downloaded. They need to go up to YouTube. So just some little things like that. But again, no blockers, just trying to make the time to make it happen and document it along the way so others can do it in the future.
Thanks, Jason. Juliet?
Hi there. let's see. So I've just been thinking about some of the things we discussed yesterday when we had our brief call about different uh, tasks that were in the that are in the discussions area. And I was thinking of taking a dive into that a little bit and kind of looking at what we went through before and what are some of the things that maybe we can get a move on between now and mainnet. Another thing that I've been thinking about is we had previously thought about in the past about having some talks, and it brought it to mind when Harold mentioned Fab Lab, as we talked about having like talks, whether they were on Zoom or whatever, with interesting people that are in governance and have relevance to what we do here in this group, and presenting that to the rest of the community. So I'm going to be thinking on that a little bit. And then the one thing I've been working on is I'm working on a grant proposal. So you all will see that when that comes out. That's about it for me.
Cool. Thanks, Juliet. And Ryan?
Sure. So I'm looking forward to reading Juliet's grant proposal. That's one thing. But yeah, so we've been getting the word out. We're doing grants demo day next Friday. So if anyone here wants to attend, that would be great. If you have questions about it, you can ask there. And there's going to be some of the current applicants, or recipients rather, they're going to be showing off their applications or what they've been working on, because it can be really quite diverse what people are working on, and as long as it's something that benefits the community and is for future work, and those are kind of the foundational stones for a grant getting approved. But yes, so that is basically what I'm doing most of the time now, is just getting the word out about that and getting questions answered. So if you have anything around that, please feel free to ping me or reach out, and I will help you out where I can. So as for the governance thing, I'm mostly just sitting in on these calls to be aware of what's going on, because you all do so much. So thanks for doing all that.
Thanks, Ryan. I saw Tarun on the call earlier, but he just dropped. So maybe if he comes back on, he can give a stand up a little later. So thank you for giving your stand-ups, everyone. Actually, Ryan, while you're here, are there any foundation related updates that you want to give or that you can give? If it's totally fine if not.
Yeah, I think it was mostly what I've said already. The approvals, we keep everything updating on GitHub as much as possible. We're going to be moving over to grant.io. Should be soon. I don't have a particular date just yet on that. And we're also getting the forum migration done. So that is ongoing. But yeah, so more and more going on with the foundation. And yep, if you're not signed up for the newsletter too, we got that out. That goes out on Wednesdays, every second Wednesday. So that's if you want to stay on top of foundation stuff. I put things in there, or of course in the channels that we have. And thank you, Jason, again for adding the StacksGov notifications channel under us Stacks Foundation area in Discord. It's great to see.
Thanks, Ryan. Actually, I think I was going to add something there. I think everybody saw the rebrand and saw that the Stacks Foundation website and Twitter had rebranded to the Stacks branding as well. So I thought that was pretty cool news, and just from an ecosystem standpoint, solidifies that this project is an ecosystem and not just a collection of random entities. And the Stacks Foundation is the first entity to take that branding on. So I'd consider that an update. All right, so just to check with you, Jason, this agenda is set up such that we do just want to go straight into action items and then save the discussion items for last, right? So we click on this and find the action items that are here for discussion.
Yeah, exactly. So that way we don't have to document them again in the agenda or anything like that. We just go directly off the label. And for the items in here, I did just jump in before the meeting and kind of close out some of the older ones. And that was part of why we set up that Discord to GitHub link as well, is so that people can be in the loop when issues are opened and closed, so that if you wanted to comment or reopen something or address something again, it's really easy. But basically, we can go through each of these, and if I can provide any input, let me know.
Okay, so I think this one just came up to fix a link on the Docsify page to Lane's analysis of the survey results, right? This just came up in Discord. Is there any other
Yeah.
color you want to add?
Yeah, we found out. So just to give a little technical background on that, we use Docsify to generate a web page automatically for both the project management and the resources repo. And I've had some trouble with the relative linking. So in the sense that I tell it there's a PDF file in there and it's not structuring the link correctly for someone to be able to access that PDF file. So I have an idea of a few workarounds, but definitely appreciate it being brought to light so I can take a look at it. But that one,
Yeah.
I'll actually assign that one to me. I'm going to take care of that this week as well.
Okay, great. So this one, I think I've given all of you a heads up about this. This is also a discussion item as well. But I have, if you haven't seen the latest version, there actually aren't that many changes after I went in and reviewed it. But I basically think that the grant application is ready for submission because it's in a good place in terms of the way that it's written. And if there are any points that are confusing or that we're missing, I'm sure that we'll hear about them in the feedback that we get from Ryan and the folks at the foundation. But I did just want to flag the notable changes I've made. So over the course of the last few calls, I think we established that the Gaia Hub Inbox's work stream of this proposal, at least for now, is too ambitious, given that we would need time from the PBC engineering team to create the design document and to basically oversee and manage the work. It would be relatively lower lift for them to do, but given that the mainnet is meant to launch soon, I think that any time might be difficult to get. So we got rid of that for this application, but it is definitely something that we can table and bring up for the next round of grant renewal. We changed the methodology for testing voting mechanisms as recommended by Jude, so I can scroll down to that area. So originally what we were going to do was test a few different voting mechanisms by polling the general community on different issues. So we would put a question out there on Discord, Twitter, Telegram, and gather those results using the different testing mechanisms. But Jude raised that one of the issues with that could be that it's just a lot of work to manage, releasing questions every couple of weeks or so, and we couldn't really rely on folks to participate in those polls regularly. So a better way to do it would be to host something like a focus group with some folks from the community, during which they would use each of the voting mechanisms that we want to test by voting on different issues. So that's outlined here. I think that it made sense, and I think that we get a much more reliable, or I think that we would get a much more reliable data set that way. Lane raised some issues about having criteria for what would qualify a voting mechanism as more accurate or more effective at measuring community sentiment. And I think that that's totally a legitimate point, and that's something that we can outline later, actually, if after we get review for this application. But I just wanted to flag that change to the methodology for this. And then the final one was that I did decrease the budget and build in that it would compensate project leads. I think previously we'd said that the budget or the grant wouldn't be used to compensate any of the working group members, but some of the leads on these projects would probably spend quite a lot of time on making sure that they happen, and they would also be working group members, so you would actually be compensated for your time. And I personally think that's totally fine. Lane flagged that this might be too low. I'm totally okay with raising it if everyone thinks that we should raise it to more. I just sort of put that number in there as like a test number for this first application. I think that just getting feedback from others on a number that seems right would be helpful here. But I basically said $600 would go toward compensating the project leads. And so it'd be $300 per person, and then there'd be $400 for miscellaneous costs. And I'm sorry, I feel like I've turned this into a discussion item instead of an action item, so I'll stop there.
I do want to comment. I think that's perfectly fine because it's something that, we all definitely want some group feedback on. So, if anybody else wants to chime in or include anything or any thoughts on that one, I think that's a big actionable item that we're very close to completing. So I don't see an issue with taking the time there.
Cool. Well, why don't we have a few more action items here, Jason. It looks like most of them have either been opened by you or Lane. Do you just want to go over them so we know what's going on here and then we can move on to discussion?
Yeah, definitely. So following the grant application, we have I did want to update these GitHub pages to eventually use the stacks.org, like a subdomain for resources.stacks.org or something like that. We're not at a stage now where we're ready to do that with the actual domain and some of the backend stuff still being in transition. So it's just an open item that we're going to address eventually. The next one, though, following up with survey respondents, we may have missed our window on this, and I'd be curious what everyone thinks, if it's something we should still do or if it's something we should just close out. But the idea was, we did that whole big survey. Now we had a captured list of emails and we could say, hey, we had even a draft up of what we would say, and we got kind of blocked from actually sending that email. So I would like to know if people would think we should still send that, or should we just close this out and move on? Definitely looking for some feedback there if anybody has any. I'll pause for a minute.
I think that we may have missed our window to email them about the survey specifically, but we do have this list of emails that we can use, and I think if we were going to email them, it would be it should be with something that we've accomplished. So something like the results of this grant application, or just anything else that would showcase the work that the governance group has done. I don't know what other folks think.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it would be problematic to reach out to people, after such a period of time has gone past and there's a disconnect between when they responded to the survey and today. So I don't think that would really work, and we probably wouldn't get much response anyway. But we should probably, look back at this, and so anything else that we haven't been able to get to because of, all the other work that's come up, and see what we can make out of it, But I agree with all of you about the following up with the survey respondents.
All right, in that case, I think that I'll go ahead and close this issue out unless there is anybody that is opposed to that on the call right now, and then we can address anything in a future issue, or we can always look back on it historically as well. So is there anybody who would be against that or thinks we should keep it open? Otherwise, I'll take care of that after the call.
I'm not against it, but can we just add a comment or a note with what we just talked about, so that if we do look back on it, we know why we close it out for now?
Yes, definitely.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, with nothing further there, I'll go ahead and move on to the last two. So the account management standard operating procedures, that's being addressed in my draft pull request, basically just trying to get all of that hammered out. And then the last one, we talked about meeting conference software. And one of the things we came up with yesterday in our quick little sync is to move forward in the easiest way possible, which is going to be to start a Zoom account under the foundation and use that as our consistent link for meetings. But the ideas here were to move to something maybe more decentralized, or that might better serve our purpose and mission in the long run. So I think we'll keep this one open, but I don't think it's something we're going to get into right away. And I'll make some comments just on that decision in itself. But we really just want to keep that low barrier to entry. So if we keep things as they are right now and develop some consistency, we can leave room to change in the future.
That
Sounds good.
Thank you for
Yeah.
adding
Hi, friends. Sorry about late. It looked like I forgot that it was half an hour earlier. But I think I was trying yesterday, made a conference, and they was trying new technologies and all that, and still there's a lot of to develop and to do, in order to make it easier. So whatever we have right now, we use Zoom. That's for the moment. I think that we have to keep on using it. I would like to develop one solution, but it's a lot of work.
Right, thanks everyone. So Jason, to be clear, we're going to keep that open, but we're going to keep the issue open, but it's not necessarily urgent that we pick new software. Is that?
Yes, yeah, or at least I think that's where we're at now, because we have done a ton of work in reviewing a few different services. I know Philip's tried out a few. You and I did some tests with Jitsi, and we've seen some mixed results to where I don't see something that I'm confident in moving to at this moment. But I do like the idea of keeping it open as something to think about. So what I'll do is add a comment just that we're going to move forward with plan A, and we can always develop plan B in the future. Or if anybody does test out different meeting software or has a really good experience or think there's something they would recommend us using, make a comment on that issue. That would be the best place for that information to keep it rolling.
Okay, sounds good. I think that we can comment even with alternatives too. So if we have, like, if we do continue using Zoom, a community account that our group can access is an even better idea than, or like as an intermediate sort of solution on our way to picking conference software that we actually stand behind.
Exactly.
Okay, great. So we've gone over the action items. Now it's on to discussion points. Nope. I'm clicking on the label thinking that it'll take me to. All right, so now we're moving on to discussion items. The first one was this, I guess, well, we're here. So a few of the things that I wanted to discuss here before actually moving forward with submission was, well, did anyone have any questions on these changes? So, everyone is cool with getting rid of the Gaia-Hub Inboxes workstream for now. Does the change in testing methodology make sense?
Yeah, it definitely seems to make sense, considering participation issues. Also, was there ever a decision made out? So there's no separation of the grants here. Just the code of conduct combined with the voting, which is still work in progress because of mainnet, correct?
Oh, are you asking, Harold, whether we decided to turn each of these work streams into individual grant applications instead of one overarching grant?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we had discussed that, and there was mixed feedback, but ultimately I think everyone seemed okay with having it be in one grant proposal, because the idea of this proposal is to basically give the working group legitimacy as a group that leads work streams that serve the larger Stacks community. So these are pressing issues that have come up within the Stacks community itself, and as a group, we want to be able to take lead on those issues and solve them in a good amount of time. And so this is almost like a debut for the working group. These are the things that we want to work on, and should we accomplish them by the first quarter of 2021, people would know that this is a group that can actually get things done.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, just thank you for clarifying. And it's good to see at the bottom there the bounties for the small tasks for all of the work that so far it seems like Jason and Lane and yourself and other folks have been doing. for free. And so it's nice to see that. And so the only other question would be, with yourselves being more familiar with what it takes for the upkeep of things like GitHub and the different tasks. I see that there's a pretty comprehensive layout of the hours that will likely be needed. Lane mentioned there may be need for more. Is there anybody else that has a similar sentiment, or how, just with the rhythm that you guys are familiar with, if how much more, if there's means to deciding how much more?
Yeah, I would love to hear any feedback on the number. To be totally honest, I picked this very arbitrarily. We can ask for up to 5,000. I started off small, knowing that we might want to work our way up to a number. So I'm open to this current total number of $1,000 being changed.
Yeah, and I myself, I wouldn't be as familiar as other folks that have had more input with things on the GitHub, and so I'm interested as well.
I will say that when I was sort of working out the numbers, $300 for 2 quarters of work from one project lead would, work out to $30 over 10 hours or so. So 2 hours over 5 weeks or something. I think that's generally where my head was at. 2 to 3 hours per week over 12 weeks is more than that. But I was actually thinking in terms of 1 quarter. So we can up this so that it's generally $20 to $30 an hour.
That was going to be my comment as well, is to kind of take it back to what it would be as an hourly rate for someone to work towards that. And it makes it a little easier to kind of visualize and set that goal, as well as to outline a little more about the milestones, right? Like if we say, okay, we're going to spend 10 hours towards this, and at so much an hour, it would cost that. It gives us a little better reference for that, but I can throw some comments into the document on what I think for that as well.
Yeah, I also agree with the rate, looking at what the hourly rate is and looking at how many hours and putting that. And I will happy to assist Jason or anyone else who's putting in more information.
Yeah, that would be great. I think this is probably our final blocker to actually submitting it, just drilling down on the budget. So if you guys could add some context there, and I think it's great to sort of outline the milestones. So we're looking at how many hours are required for certain parts of the project. That would be helpful. And I think the last question I want to ask is, I don't think it's appropriate for me to submit this grant application. So is there anyone in this group who would be willing to submit this on the grants repo?
Sure. I mean, I'll step up as soon as we figure we get these last few things cleaned up, and I don't see that there would be a problem getting those things cleaned up fairly rapidly.
Awesome. Okay.
The one thing with Juliet, if you're going to submit another one, I'll have to check with Brittany, but we're trying to not fund, if someone's got 2 applications, not fund them at the same time, like wait till one's done till the other one comes up. So if somebody else were to do that, I'll check with Brittany if that'd be the case, because the governance committee is not like the same thing as an individual, you know what I mean? So just to make sure on that before you submit it, okay?
Yeah, that would be appreciated, because I'm already working on something else.
Yeah, no worries, yeah.
Another grant, and I don't want to run into that issue. So
Cool.
thank
I'll find
you.
out. No problem.
Thanks for flagging that, Ryan. And okay, actually, this is the final question, is if we can get these changes fixed relatively quickly, are we comfortable with submitting this either at the end of day today or early tomorrow?
I don't see any blockers to getting it in and getting it done.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that for my schedule for the rest of the day, tomorrow morning would be a good bet.
Wonderful. Great. Okay, so we're going to submit this tomorrow morning. congrats to us. This is really cool.
Yay. It's awesome seeing it come together.
It's a pre-celebratory moment.
Yeah.
Yes, awesome. And congrats to, I mean, there's a lot of work, Jenny, you did put a lot of work in keeping this going, and everyone here has done, Jason's done a lot of work. Everyone here has really put in some great, effort, Jude and all the conference calls. So it's really exciting. And thank you, you guys, for all the work you've done.
Thanks, Juliet.
A lot of work has been done, and well, nice to hear you at least, and nice to meet you again.
All right, so let's get back to discussion. We've got a bit of time left. Jason, I'm not sure the best way to go about this because the person who wrote this, I don't think is here. So don't think it's worth going over this.
I've been debating the best way to kind of handle this stuff as well. I think that having a kind of high level overview might be interesting, so that if somebody wanted to either talk about this from their own perspective that's here on the call, or if there was any additional information to have, that's good. Otherwise, I think it's more if there's anybody who has an issue that they represent on this list to definitely step up and just kind of give an update, or we can add it in the comments or something like that. So regarding that GTLD proposal, I thought it was a fascinating idea. It's around creating like a .stax or .stx type domain name. And it is a large undertaking that would probably be done by the foundation or by PBC or something else, or may even be a whole separate discussion topic for that. But it was kind of a cool topic overall. And if anybody has any comments on that or has had any thoughts about that, it's pretty cool. Otherwise, I'd say we could definitely move on to the next thing.
Okay.
All right, and the next two were from me. So we're starting to, these are still just kind of open discussion items to figuring out how to assign sort of actionable roles or responsibilities to people within the working group without creating too much friction at the same time. So we talked about having like someone who would publish updates after a meeting, or somebody who would take notes during the meeting to do something like that. And we've been hashing it out a little bit each time between the syncs and the meetings themselves. So I think these are just more open discussion items to think of what that would look like. And I definitely welcome anybody to provide any feedback or any thoughts in the issues or anything like that, but I don't have anything to add in particular for those. The one following that, those two roles though, is the town hall meeting or a general public call. And this was something that everybody on the past few meetings that we talked about, it was really interested in this idea that we would rotate maybe once every few months, or I don't know what the proposed schedule would be, but to have an actual town hall, much like they do with the Blockstack stuff. And it's still just remains as an open discussion item, but would anybody have anything to add for that one?
Do you mean like a governance committee only town hall?
I mean, it's probably the whole community invited for this governance town hall, because my mix of Spanish and English. Well, sorry. The distance, it's getting bigger and bigger every day. So of the people being aware there's a governance, you say action, and also what you're doing. So whatever we advance, that's good. I mean, it's every step we do will help the the awareness of the community, because essentially this blockchain communities, they ecosystems, they require a kind of governance that understand the spirit of what we are trying to do, and so that's something that that's not it's not something that you're going to achieve it in right away. I mean, it's especially if it's growing and there's some incentives, especially financial incentives, that brings people, that and most of the ecosystems have mentioned that then the first people that come are people that speculative people, and sometimes they're not the best people that do, or the attitudes is sometimes very competitive, very that, and so that those some things that at least we have to make sure that to keep on that good spirit that we have seen. So that's you cannot do it just one shot. It has to be systematically done. The problem is that so many things to do, but at least small things we have to start with.
Sure, I totally understand that, Philip. I think the easiest thing we could probably do is just to pick a date for the first one. And to answer your question, Ryan, this would be more of just an invitation to the general public to take a look at what the governance working group is doing, how we're implementing governance in the Stacks ecosystem, how we interact as a group, and what we do in our meetings, kind of highlight some resources. So more of a high-level overview, a lot like Blockstack would host their town halls, just about the blockchain and everything else, and give people a chance to interact and maybe broaden the attendees and the involvement in the group as well.
And I think this would I'm really excited about this actually, and because I know we've talked about this before, but I think that we can also dovetail in with the idea of having a speaker in addition, maybe not on the town hall, but something that goes along with this, with speakers that are known in governance within blockchain, as well as highlighting what we're doing. I don't know, but these are some ideas that I've had that I think would be really interesting, and maybe interesting to the community as well.
Sometimes people will use Discord Hangout in that way. Just like, Russ has done that in the past, but I don't know if this is something you'd want to do over a Zoom or over a Crowdcast, just depending on how big of a group you want to get, I guess.
Yeah, I think that will depend on the format we decide to take. I will say that, with the purpose of any old town hall is to bring people together and discuss pressing issues, or they don't even have to be pressing, but relevant issues for that particular community, and which I think that we can execute on really well. I think what I worry about is the follow-up after that. So it's good to provide a space to people to air out their concerns and raise potential projects, but what capacity do we have to turn that feedback into actionable plans or steps? I think that I feel like this requires a little more thinking on a strategic level, but I am definitely for providing a space to community to just talk about governance in general. I just wonder what the next step after that would be.
Let me just address that. As I think that in the next topic, the roadmap, I think that gives some. I think that we need to have, as you say, more of a strategic plan, so that when we have the town hall, we also know what we want to accomplish with that and what next steps are. So everything you've addressed in a minute ago, Jenny, I think that those are things that we really need to, when we put anything like this together, we need to understand what's the reason we're doing it, and what do we want to accomplish, and what are the next steps, the follow-up. So I think that also dovetails in with roadmaps and being able to have a roadmap for this group. So perhaps we're not ready for it.
Yeah, actually, maybe I'm like shooting myself in the foot by saying this on a public call, but I would be happy to assign the roadmap issue to myself as something to start thinking about and start taking on. So, and I can fill in the details of that later, but that's something that I would be really happy to do. And I know we only have 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure that Harold gets some time to discuss the next issue. But totally agree, Juliet, and that actually gets me really excited about the next couple of months of work on this. Harold, do you want to go over issue number 54 at all?
Yes, and thank you kindly. It is issue 54, and I think I said 56 earlier, but it is 54, and I just encourage people here that are here to go to that issue and check out the two separate proposals and the two separate one pagers that help describe those one pagers or to describe those proposals, and I encourage folks to. It is quite. I know it's a lot at once, especially if you're not familiar with the different things mentioned. But I do want as many voices as possible, so it doesn't seem as if it's just a couple people that are real familiar with, what is going on in terms of potential collaboration between our ecosystem and the Fab Academy ecosystem and network. And so just feel free to contribute in the GitHub issue for questions or discussions. Feel free to fire any quickly here as I quickly shut up. And yeah, that's all I have for now. But I think I'll be putting together a meeting with folks that are familiar with it and try to get together availabilities or just have personal one-on-one calls with folks that like Jenny and Juliet and Jason, who have already and Lane, who've already expressed interest and or maybe already familiar with it. But feel free to reach out and start some of this discussion and spread it to others as well. Because I know Tomas is going to want to speak to people directly involved with the foundation specifically. And so having folks really understanding exactly what is possible, contributing their own ideas as to what's better than my ideas, as well is important for me. And so yeah, I'll stop there and hopefully there's some questions here or later.
Harold, I definitely am interested in hearing what the progress was since over the summer and what your next steps are. And so I'm really excited to hear about where, the interview with or discussions with Tomas. And so please let us know. Please keep me in the loop and keep all of us in the loop. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you kindly, Juliet.
Thanks, Harold. Jason, I actually feel like that this might be a good point to explain our timeline for working in the weeks in between these meetings. So Harold, it sounds like you're taking the lead on this issue, and it's something that we want to stay in the loop on. And we, in our sync yesterday, we were talking about just like a schedule for action. So immediately after the meeting, we would send out the agenda for the next meeting. And then a week after that, we would ping all the folks in the working group and ask them to update their issues. So, with your issue number 54, like within the next week, you would add any comments, any questions, any progress that you've made, and you can ping us for feedback as well. But you would do that a week before the following meeting as a way to keep ourselves accountable. That's what we had talked about, right, Jason? And Harold, yeah, you're welcome to chime in and let us know if that's a bad idea or not.
No, it sounds good. It sounds good. And I think it can help facilitate discussion and keep people reminded that we want this discussion to happen. So yeah, thank you kindly for laying out that much needed structure.
Yeah, and just since you asked me directly, that that was definitely what we discussed, is having this sort of, since we're doing this 2-week cadence, to have that 1-week point to be a nice point to relay either updates about the meeting or updates to issues in general, especially ones that are very focused like that one. So thank you, Harold, for that. And I know I'm definitely looking forward to more of that. Definitely clue me in along the way, or if there's anywhere I can help you out. And it's been fun looking over both of those topics with you in the past. So I look forward to doing some more and getting that moving again as well.
Beautiful. Thank you kindly, Jason. And we'll do. I'll definitely be reaching out to all folks interested, and I'll definitely, maybe even before that that midweek point, be trying to facilitate discussion in the GitHub. But the meetings, I hopefully, at least for people that are familiar, I'll be reaching out very soon just to retouch bases and bring Tomas in.
Well, thanks, Harold. Super exciting. It looks like we're at time and we have a few more discussion items to go over. I don't know how we feel about tabling them for next week or whether we just want to go over them quickly. I'll default to Jason on that.
Well, I can actually sprint real quickly through these just so we get them done today. So for the fireside chat series, we talked about, you know, having someone come out, be a significant speaker or somebody in the space, and I've actually just linked that one to the town hall meeting based on the discussion today. So, you know, definitely encourage if anybody has any suggestions or if they want to just comment on what's already in there to take a look at it. Following that one, our shared StacksGov and Blockstack resources was, that one came from me. It was about how can we use a Blockstack ID as a group? And it's a bigger question that I think would be helpful down the road, but nothing that we need to jump into right now. And following that, languages and translations. So this was an interesting point that came up out of the survey, and we wanted to make sure that we have the broadest reach possible. So, you know, just using English as a language, we're definitely missing out on some possibilities there. So that's more of just a reminder as we do different things to consider languages and translations as we go along. And then finally, the last one on the list, we were going to establish this community observer role for the original research calls around governance. And we've talked about closing it out once or twice. The feeling was that it needed to be left open or it needed to be ratified as an actual action item. So that's why it still sits on the list today. I do welcome everybody to look at it. It would be good to see if it's still relevant to what we're thinking or if we need to move it more towards like the community board seat idea or something like that. But that would be just a quick overview of what each of those is. And of course, at any time, anybody is welcome to jump into these issues, to make comments, or ping me on Discord and I can add it to the issue. We just really want to keep things out in the open, keep people aware, and give as many possibilities for people to contribute where possible.
The list is very useful, so we have to maintain that.
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody. This has been a great and productive meeting. I personally really liked the format of it. Are there any burning questions or comments that we want to address before we end this week's meeting?
Yeah, just one question, Jenny. I saw some something that was written inside the node. When you install the software, there's some rules of conduct, and it looks like it comes from some other source that is the open source community or something like that. That was something we agreed to have that.
I think that standard code of conduct is the same across the repos, at least for all the Blockstack repos. So it may have been inherited from that. But I actually think that that's one of the reasons that motivated the Can't Be Evil code of conduct. So writing one that's more specific to the community. But yeah, if you're seeing like a very standard one, it's just been inherited from the other Blockstack repos.
Yeah. Yes, so that's something that we have to address before everything, before mainnet, you know, because that is getting distributed everywhere, and we should, if it's not bad, it's a good one, but still we have to make sure that is following our guidelines or our vision of this.
I definitely agree with you, Philip. So the one that's there now is based on the contributor covenant, which is just a sort of generalized one. And I know we've talked about this a little bit on calls before, But I also agree that, by developing this can't be evil code of conduct, we're going to be setting a real standard for everything that's going on around here. And as well as a nice guideline for people coming into the space to learn more about what it truly means to be part of this ecosystem. And I think a lot of us, where we find our camaraderie is in the values that we share together. So I'm on board with you on that. I'm definitely excited. And I think that's part of what's coming up next.
Also, some inside knowledge, Alex, who's the DevX lead on for Blockstack PBC, has been doing a ton of work on the docs, and we talked about developing better contributing guidelines for GitHub, and I sent him some examples. So he's just getting started on outlining that, but I assume that would be a very community-oriented process, given that there's a docs channel in Discord now, and there's a lot of planning to have like a docs hack week. So that's potentially an area that you could get involved in, Philip, if you feel passionate about drafting better contributing guidelines. I know I do. I don't think the ones that we have now are very good. Okay. All right. Well, on that note, thank you everybody for a great meeting, and we will talk in 2 weeks.
Yeah, see you guys then.
See ya.
Thank you guys.
Thank you,
See you
everybody.
later. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye-bye.